Welcome to Total Health Talks. This is the show where we dive and we delve into the tackling the health from that holistic standpoint. Again, as I've always told you before, and we talk about this all the time, health is not just one thing. Health is many things, many different pieces. So we're talking about physical, spiritual, emotional, financial, community. It takes all of these pieces to put that puzzle together. Now, today I am thrilled to have Chip Sebastian, a renowned martial artist, active shooter trainer, and he's from Lexington, Kentucky. And I mean, come on, you gotta love Lexington. They got a great sports team. I don't want to start any rivalry, but they got a great sports team. He has a rich journey that spans over 4 decades. He's not just a martial artist, master, but also, and I'm going to chew some of these words up and mess them up, so hopefully he won't take it out on me and fix me later. But he is also a ninth Dan in Kiyo Jute Ru Kempo. He's in his 40th year of teaching and training. His expertise extends beyond just the dojo, as if that wasn't enough, as just being, the only guy who probably strikes fear in Chuck Norris's heart. He also has other attributes. Like I said, that's not enough. He's a massage therapist. He's a dance instructor. He's a on-camera actor. He's a voice actor. So when I say he's a part of the community, he's actually out here doing the work. He is doing the work. Join us as we explore Chip's multifaceted career. We're going to delve into some of the philosophy behind martial arts, uncover some of the health benefits, how it actually works. Now, we're not going to give you any secret sauce that solves all your problems with respect to martial arts, but he is going to give us some insight to some things that we may or may not have known and how martial arts ties to our health. So without further ado, I introduce you to Chip Sebastian. I hope I didn't tear those words up too bad, Chip. I hope I wasn't too bad with them.
No, that was one of the best intros I've ever heard, and thank you, Tony, for having me on. And no, it's all good. Yeah, that was. I was just feeling good about myself when you were saying all that. You know what
I tell you, man, listen, I've seen your resume. I've checked your website. I've been around. I've seen the work. I've seen your posts and the things to do in Kentucky group. And yeah, you should feel good about yourself. You out here doing, I started to feel like after looking your stuff up, I was like, Tony, are you really doing enough in this world? Are you really? So, but let me ask you, Chip, can you share with us a little bit about your journey into martial arts and how it all began for you?
Sure. My start was back in 1984, and I actually went to train with my friend Derek at a place here in Lexington called Four Seasons. Back then, it was called Four Seasons Kung Fu and Wushu Academy, and it was run by Dr. John Ng, who now lives in well, he was living in Whitesburg. He sort of retired, but Dr. Ng had started Four Seasons in the early 80s, and it was mainly a traditional kung fu and wushu and competition school, but it had traditional training as well in many different things. So that was my initial foray into martial arts. And my friend Derek, we were there for probably a year and he left, but I wound up staying. And so I stayed on, and I was mainly competing at the time. At that time, you had this kind of thing coming in from the late 60s and 70s of full contact karate, or what was then more PKA tournaments, Professional Karate Association tournaments, and then other types of competition as well, and forms competition. You had that sort of um, there, but you also had what was coming in as point competition, which was basically like we're not hitting as hard and we've got gloves on and things like that. So you had these two groups that were kind of going back then, and I was there when that was kind of transitioning, or it was, bubbling out or whatever. And so I wound up competing throughout the 80s, and then in 89 I wound up going to UK, the University of Kentucky, and there were probably about five different styles that were going on as clubs at the University of Kentucky at the time, I did all of them. Aikido,
Wow.
Shotokan karate, Isshin-ryu karate, and what
So now let me stop you here. Did you say you did Aikido?
I did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Okay, because
Aikido.
as a kid, my father put me in Aikido, and I put myself right out of it real fast. But that was something I really, really enjoyed. Though when I look back at it now, I was like, wow, you should have stuck with that. So you pretty much got a whole rounded table of experience. I gotta ask though, because I know it's a lot of work. I seen the discipline. What motivated you to to go into martial art? What motivated you to want to go that route?
Well, initially I got into it because at the time ninja movies were really big,
Ah,
and me, we were kids. We
yeah.
were running around in little ninja outfits and climbing trees and all that, and we were like, oh yeah, and this place says it teaches ninjutsu and it teaches kung fu and blah blah blah. And so we went in there initially for that. It was sort of whimsical, or uh, but also, I wanted to be able to defend myself. There was that aspect to it as well. But the thing is, it staying in it and competing, it's probably like a lot of us, lot of young guys who get on the football team or baseball team, or things like that, or they box. There's a tribal aspect to it where you are like, man, I'm really trying to find my people. And in high school, all the way through, I mean, I'm 6'3". I'm a big dude, and so in high
Okay.
school, all the way through, the coaches were coming to me, hey, you need to be on the field, you need to be playing, you need to be doing all this, and I was like, honestly, I'm not that interested.
So
I wasn't that interested. I was too, busy with my martial arts and doing theater and other things like that. So I'm just an odd.
so so question here then. So at 6'3", right? I'm 6 foot, and so I know what 6'3" really is. So you didn't really have to say, okay, I'm taking martial arts to just defend myself, because at 6'3", for the most part, most people with common sense ain't trying to start no problems with you. So then there had to be some other benefits that actually came from it. So what other things did you get outside of the physical component of, okay, I can defend myself? What are some of the other things that you ended up actually picking up from martial arts?
Well, it's a wonderful question. It's something, honestly, I really haven't realized until the last maybe 20 years, and uh, I think my body and my sort of mind or spirit, if you will, intuitively knew that I needed the things that martial arts offers. And by that, what I mean are things like discipline and focus and self control and better breathing and better movement, and uh, being able to be gentle with people and being able to let things go, and not taking it all so seriously, and the value of austerity and constant training, and and the adherence and appreciation of tradition. All those things were tied into the martial arts. But if you had asked me that when I was 20 years old, I'd have been like, well, I just want to kick ass, man. It would have been that, 'cause,
Yeah.
but I think in our bodies, we intuitively know things. And if you're wise and you listen to that bigger voice, or that over self, or that wiser part of you, or however you want to frame that part of yourself, then you're the better for it. And I'd argue too that people who go the other way, like maybe, oh, I'm hanging out with a group, they're doing a lot of drugs, and but I'm rationalizing my drug abuse. But deep down, like really deep down in my core, I know I'm going down the wrong path. You know
Right.
or
Well,
I'm hanging out at the bars every night, yeah, that kinda thing, I mean, come on, it. You don't need people
so
to tell you that,
So here's a question though, because you hit on this just a little bit, right? You're talking about, when I was 20, why I would have done it. And for me, when my dad said, "Hey, I'm going to Aikido, and you're going too," and I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna learn how to beat everybody up in the fifth grade, right?" Um, you know, that's the conception of it at that time, and so it's a misconception for me that, okay, you're gonna go in here and you're gonna walk out, and everybody's gonna just tremble at your feet, and you're gonna be able to walk through, and crowds are open like the oceans, parting the Red Sea. But what are some of the other the most common misconceptions that you run into as people are starting to take the training, or as people are coming to either your self-defense classes or different things like that? What are some of the more common misconceptions that people have that we can kind of set straight right here to say, hey, this is not necessarily what it is?
Uh, boy, there are quite a few of those, but I'd say the biggest misconception that winds up being a deterrent from people even trying martial arts is they're afraid they're going to get hurt. And so, if you, like, for instance, if you open a school or if you teach a class somewhere and you say, I'm teaching karate, or I'm teaching jujutsu, or I'm teaching aikijujutsu, or I'm teaching weapons, or I'm teaching gun defense, whatever,
Right.
a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, I've seen on TV where people get hit and kicked. And I guess it's going to be like a cage match and they're going to pit me against people. And, and all, and it's understandable that they feel that way. I mean, that's precisely what happened to me in the '80s. Was is just like, here's how to punch. Now jump in that ring and fight this guy. And a lot of people don't really want that. They don't want to, oh, I need to get kicked in the head 40 times to learn how to defend myself. They
Right.
don't want that. And thank God that it was not how traditional training was. I didn't know that until I was, 10 years or more into training, that in those days there wasn't this competitive aspect like many people would have you believe these days. You know,
Wow.
right? In other words, if you and I were living in, let's say, 1750 Japan, and we said, "Hey, we're living in this little, hillside community here. We got 40 people, and we know that this clan over the hill is going to come over tomorrow and try to kill us, and take our women and take our food, and we're going to be dead. We need to learn something. Hey, these things I've been hitting rice with to beat the rice, they actually could be used as a weapon to hit somebody upside the head." And if I twist the guy's
Right.
arm this way, that makes him leave me alone. And if I put a finger in his eye this way, that makes him back off. That's how the stuff developed. But it wouldn't be like, hey, Tony, we just finished 10 hours of working in the field. Let's go spar, you know?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
There is no evidence for that. So if anybody's ever, if they're watching your podcast here and they go, well, that can't be right. I've always heard that the tradition of blah 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 goes back 5,000 years. And it's like, well, that's fine. Show me the evidence for it.
Well, but here's the thing though. So you've been doing this. I mean, you're four decades in,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah,
you've been around long
this
enough
year
to
is 40
see.
years. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me break the math down for y'all. Four decades, 40 years.
Hard to believe, man. Hard to
but
believe.
but you've been around to see the transitions of the martial arts and the self defense. And you've already talked about some of the ways it has actually helped and affect you, as far as some positive things, from a health and a wellness standpoint. And then I'm hearing that your mental and emotional health is actually in there as well. But you've seen the transition of what it was to what it is now.
Right.
So then, how how have you been able to adapt more toward real life environments today? Is it just tradition? Is how it was done, or are trainings being adapted more toward what's happening in today's world? Keeping in mind the physical aspect, but then also the emotional and social aspects of it as well. How have you been able to cultivate that family type of environment with your training?
Well, the honestly, what we do hasn't changed in hundreds of years. I mean, we do have a family style system, with Kyojutei-ryu Kempo, which is the system that I've been in since '93. When I got into that system, it had everything in it, so I didn't need to, go around and do a lot of stuff in today's language, what you would say I do mixed martial arts. That really is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, today, the idea is, okay, well, I'm going to go train in karate for 3 months. Now I'm going to go train jujutsu for 6 months. Now I'm going to go train weapons for 3 months. And, people don't realize that Kempo, in its original meaning, was we have all of these things together. And that's why, if somebody goes to our website and looks at the curriculum or comes into a class, they're going to be exposed to karate and jujutsu and aikijujutsu and weapons and all of it, because that's what Kempo is. It's a conglomerate of these things. And the philosophy in the old days of Kempo was that when you do all these things, they synergistically come together and become stronger. So in other words,
Mhm.
let's say you've just been learning jujutsu and you've been learning how to get on the ground and choke people and how to throw them and twist arms and all that. And then you say, okay, wait, but I also know karate. Well, the karate empowers the jujutsu. The jujutsu empowers the karate. If you know karate, really well, and you know jujutsu, your weapons arts are empowered. Do you see what I mean? I mean, like
Yeah.
coming from your perspective, I mean, you're an RN, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're an RN. So you know very well that, hey, if I am an RN and then I've studied, you know, if I've studied what it means to be a physical therapist, as well as a physician's assistant, as well as an MP,
Yes.
as well as a DO, then you're like, man, I am a much better RN for all of that knowledge. And
I think that's the greatest analogy anybody ever displayed for me to be able to understand something and make it real for me.
well, it's
And
true
then
for
just
you,
your
isn't it? Yeah. It's
yeah, your ability to be able to read that quickly and make that that makes me wonder just how your classes are because you're able to pick up something, read it, and go from there. And that goes along with what we do with this podcast. We're talking about total health. You have to know a little bit about all these other pieces, and it makes your piece better. It makes you be able to fit more cohesively with the other pieces. So
mm,
in the medical environment, the more I know about what physical therapy has to do, what speech therapy has to do,
absolutely. Yeah.
what the lab people have to do. I can have things positioned, set, and ready, and I can be moving the energy of that individual towards those different areas. So I think that is I gotta be honest, that's about the best example I've ever had somebody put something to me, and I was able to pick it up just like that right off the top. Um, so now
Yeah.
you do classes, and you've got a class coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, I do. I'll go ahead and plug the class. This coming Saturday, which would be Saturday the 13th of January, we're doing a ladies only self defense clinic over at Emmanuel Baptist Church. I've done them there for years. They're wonderful. Last I checked, which I checked yesterday, there were about 40 women signed up already. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so I found out years ago that if you have ladies only clinics, a whole lot of ladies show up who wouldn't show up if it's co-ed. And
Right.
kind of dovetailing back to what we were talking about a minute ago about what keeps people from training or trying it or misunderstandings. Like you were saying, for me, 6'3", yeah, I'm walking down the street. I don't get jumped or picked on a lot. But early on, I really felt like, I just don't really care that much about competition. I'd done all that stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And it was fun. But it's not really that thrilling to me. What's a lot more thrilling is being able to teach people who actually need the self defense training. In other words, people who statistically are attacked a lot. Now, there are four main groups, traditionally that just get it a lot more than others, okay? Kids, women, people who are infirm, so people in wheelchairs, people missing limbs, people who can't, just don't have everything going, right? And
Right.
then elderly. Those are the four big groups, okay? And by the way, that cuts through ethnicity as well. Same thing, you can take any ethnicity, cultural group. You could take any slice of pie, any geographical region, those 4 are the ones. And so,
Okay.
I you know, really thought, well, I'm really more interested in helping those people be able to have some kind of uh, ability to defend themselves because A, they have fewer skills most of the time, just because they're smaller or less able to stop someone swinging a punch at their head or a kick or whatever. And then B, statistically, they're more likely to get it. In other words, if I'm a criminal and I'm hanging out outside Kroger and I'm going, boy, who's looking good today to I bop over the head and take their money. Well, they're not going to pick me.
Right.
They're,
Right.
they're going to pick, little Miss Smith who's 85 and she's walking under a place where the lights have gone out and they can conk her over the head and take her purse. Now that seems kind of extreme when I say that. However, I would encourage any of your listeners to just read the paper. It's happening all the time. They're in your city of Louisville. Not what was it? Mid last year, you had that active shooter situation, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
and when that happened, I know a lot of the people at our stations here in Lexington, and one of the people called me up and said, "Hey, would you like to say something about this since you teach self defense?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to do that." And they came down to the UK Kempo Club, which is on the University of Kentucky campus, which we have classes down there every Monday and Wednesday, 6:30 to 8:30 at Alumni Gym. And so they came down there right before class and interviewed me, and that's online. People can go look at it. But basically, I was saying the same thing then that I'm saying now, which is people need training. When people, you know, they need training. But when you tell people they need training, like let's say that you're a lady who's 90 pounds soaking wet, and you have been married to a guy for 2 years, and after, the honeymoon was over, he started getting abusive, right? And you don't know what to do about it. You wanna be able to defend yourself, but you've never had any defense training in your life. You don't know where to go for it.
Right.
You're scared, what if he finds out about it? All that kinda stuff. Well, you know, what about those people who actually need those skills? Now, the typical thing people will do is just jump in any old training or dojo, but the problem is most of them are concerned with sport. They're concerned with
Well,
sport.
I'm glad you said that. I want to ask you on this point because I've got your credentials, and then we talked about your credentials. So a person who is actually looking at, hey, I do want to get into some type of defensive training, and it's not from the need of I just want to be out here and doing something from a sports standpoint. What do they need to be looking for? Let's just say all of your classes are full, or they're miles away and they can't get to you. What is it that they would need to be looking for to say, okay, I vetted this place or I vetted these individuals, and this is something that aligns with what I want to do, and I'm going to actually get some quality training from it.
Uh, Number one, you need to ask the people, is your first and foremost focus self defense? Number two, you
Okay.
need to ask if they try to promote competition or if they're going to try to get you to compete. You can't train for competition and self defense effectively at the same time. People think you can, okay? But the problem is with self defense training that there is no feedback loop. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, like
Yeah,
I'll give you an example in your own home court again, okay? You're an
I
RN.
love it.
Yeah, okay. So, you're in school as an RN and somebody says, "We're gonna learn how to stick people today so you can take a blood sample." You put the needle in, you miss the vein, you fish it, and people are going, "Oh, there's bruises all up and down my arm." Whoever's teaching you says, "We need to do better." And you do that until finally you can stick and you can draw blood and it's clean and it's smooth and it's great. Now, you had a feedback loop. You
Right,
did it, it didn't work too well, you kept doing that, it came around, and then finally, you're like, "Oh, I have success. I did it." Right? See,
right.
self-defense doesn't work like that. 'cause, you know, you can't say, "I'm gonna learn how to punch and kick and choke, this other stuff. Now let's run out and attack somebody and see if it works, or let's wait for somebody to attack."
Ah,
You see what I'm saying? So, what people do instead is they say, "Well, the real way to test it is, let me jump in a ring with rules, and we're gonna test our self-defense skills, but by the way, we're gonna have 3 rounds, and you can't choke anybody, and you can't gouge eyes, and you can't rip off ears, and you can't kick knees backwards, and you can't break necks, and you can't break elbows, and you can't rip out throats,
ooh,
and you can't pinch and twist skin, and you can't grab groins." You see, you know, you've
I'm
taken out all
I'm
the
not defending.
yeah, I mean, but you've taken out all of the things. I mean, they're the first things that I would teach women in their defense. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
you're doing is you're limiting or delimiting the potential, and the problem with that is when you get to that stage of explaining it to people, the problem is people go, "Oh well, you know, if I really had to turn it on, though, I'd just turn it on, man. You know, I just turn it
That's not how
on."
things work.
It's not how things
That's
work,
not how
and
things work.
anybody who's spent any time doing any muscle memory stuff knows that. You respond in the way that you train. So if you train and
Yes,
train and train, you say, "Well, I'm never doing any of that stuff, but, you know, I really you know, if the chips were down, I'd do it." It doesn't work like that, you know? I mean,
yeah,
this is why, you know, this is why the military doesn't train in paintball. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
You say, "Hey, we're you know, we're dropping you in a hot zone tomorrow, and you better know how to use your, you know, your handgun and your machine." They're not gonna say, "Well, let's go play paintball and prepare for that."
Yeah, it's a whole different animal, and
Right.
coming from having been military, I can tell you it's a whole different
Well, I'm
animal. When
saying,
you're
now
you're
you know, yeah.
yeah, when you're training, you're training for real. So live fire ranges, when you're going and you're low crawling and they're firing real bullets over your head, you know what that feels like.
Yeah, you wanna get
You know what it
real low
sounds
when it's
like.
live ammo.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
a whole different animal. When they
Right.
when they spray the CS in your face for you to get confidence in your mask, your gas mask, you know what it's like for real,
Oh,
and
oh
it gives you that confidence. But if they just said, "I'm going to spray water, act like it's something, and put the mask on," there's no confidence. No, I completely
Yeah,
get that.
you see what I
So,
mean, right? I mean, about the reality of things, and you know, we had a really bad thing in the '90s where, like when BJJ came in, and you know, and a lot of times I'll get on these kicks, and I'm not poo pooing people or anything, but I'm just telling it like it is. I have friends that do BJJ, and it's all fine, man. You know, but we have to say what things are. You know, we have to be real about it. You know, but basically, what was being taught it was well, you know, 80 or 90% of all fights end up on the ground anyway, so you may as well go to the ground and just start rolling with people. Now,
all right, so educate me and my viewers on what is BJJ.
okay, so BJJ is
What does it
Brazilian
stand for?
Jiu-Jitsu, and that
Okay,
is
okay,
a descendant of the original judo or jujutsu, which was established by a master named Jigoro Kano in the late
okay,
1800s. He founded what's called the Kodokan Judo. Now, keep in mind, all of these things, throwing and joint locking and choking, they were used on the battlefield for hundreds of years prior to that. A lot of people don't
okay,
realize that. They think it just magically appeared in the 1800s or whatever. But no, it's like these things developed mainly because of the advent of armor. That's why they developed. So, in other words, you know, if you and I were on the battlefield and we were fighting some guys and we were wearing loincloths, well, you know, we could just go up and punch them in the face or stick them with a spear or whatever. You know, but the problem is over the centuries, armor developed. So you can't
right,
do that with people anymore, you know? You got face plates on and chest plates and everything. So as a result, people started throwing people and they started breaking wrists and they started, choking people out and things like that. That's how
okay,
jujitsu started, was on the battlefield. Once again, I encourage people, don't take my word for it. Just go read history. It'll take 10 minutes to read it. All right. And
right,
but Jigaro Kano really codified a lot of that, and it became what's called the Kodokan, or the Kodokan was the main school, I should say. And Kano wrote many books on jujutsu. Well, one of the his students that he sent to Brazil wound up founding or starting what's called Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and they sort of treat jujutsu now as sort of their own thing, or different from what was going on then. The main difference is they just stay on the ground all
Okay.
the time.
Okay.
You know, they
Well,
don't do a
so
lot of
so
standing
I,
for.
I've got a question for you myself here, and I don't want to just interject for
So,
a second.
so
Um,
you know,
oh,
uh,
I'm
you
sorry.
okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we teach people in the traditional manner to stay on your feet. You know, if you do fall to the ground or somebody takes you down, get back up. And the reason for that, of course, and I'm sure you know this being military, is you might have more than one attacker.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I'm teaching a lady who's 90 pounds and I say, well, you know, a guy's trying to rape you in the alley, go ahead and lay down in the alley and start rolling around with him. That's the answer. Choke him out. And he's 3 times your size. I mean, does
Yeah.
that
That's
make
not going to be effective.
that doesn't make any sense, does it? Yeah, or
No.
what if he's got a weapon and you're on the ground with him, right?
No.
And so
Yeah.
no, you know, we want to think, no, we want to stay on our feet. We want to run if we can. We want to get away. We don't even want to be in the situation if we can help it. Like I tell my students, it's really hard to be in a bar fight if you're not in a bar, you know? You know, it's hard to be in an alley fight if you don't cut through an alley at 2 in the morning and it's dark and there's dumpsters and bums and everything else hanging out in there, you know? You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah. Oh
So
no. I definitely get it. It makes sense. I also want to ask a question here though, because you talk about, and we talked about in your intro, the different things that you are, right? So you're a voice actor and you're an actual in-person actor, and it also made me wonder, with your background in film, how has that influenced your approach to training? Because a lot of the stuff that you're saying, right, is stuff that I've seen in karate movies, right? So I've seen the whole, in film, because in film they're trying to sell the movie. So they've
sure.
got you doing a lot of different things, and it is that whole go to your back, fight from here, this, that type of thing. How has your experience in film influenced your actual training in the real world?
You know, uh you know, in terms of the excitement of getting into martial arts, of course, you know, movies were instrumental in getting me into it and getting me, you know, interested in it to begin with. You know, Bruce Lee and all that stuff. But in terms of how it affects my training, probably the main thing is just realizing how disparate the stuff we see in movies is from real training. You know, I mean, and like, you know, once again, you're military, so I mean, if you start training somebody, you know, if somebody goes, well, you know, I saw Jackie Chan do a backflip before he hit this guy that was attacking him. You know, what are you going to say to that? You know, you got to say, well, that's a movie, that's fantasy, you know,
Right.
and in the same way, you know, we wouldn't have a showdown, you know, if you watch Gunfight at the OK Corral or something. You know, we're not going to do backflips, you know, before we defend ourselves, right? You know what I mean? So you know, you have to really tell people. I mean, it seems like common sense when you say it to me, but for a lot of people, they need to be told. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were trying to end a fight quickly. You were trying to not
Common
get.
sense ain't so common. Common sense ain't so common. I'm coming to find out. So.
It's really true, man. It's really, you know, and I mean, you have people watching Kung Fu Panda thinking that that's real, you know. And so and I love Kung Fu Panda as much as the next person. I mean, I watch all that stuff, but you gotta be real about it. You know, just like once again, you're an RN, man. You know, if somebody said, "Hey man, I want to start getting in the medical field," you know, I was watching ER and I really dug it, you know, and I want to
Yeah.
get in, you know, and you go ER, what? Talking about George Clooney and stuff, man? What are you talking about? Right? That's
Yeah.
what you say, right? You wouldn't say
Yeah.
like light years
Yeah.
from the reality of things, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what you have to really instill that in people who are coming to you with a serious issue of trying to learn proper defense, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well, but I
and
think that I think the key word you said there is defense, and I think that's a very key thing. As a child and as a kid, we think it's all aggressive in the attack, um, and more so the defense. I think has a huge priority, and I think from what you said earlier, understanding what the demographics is, the people who are being attacked, and then understanding why you would be taking training like this. For my age range, yeah, it's definitely defense. I'm definitely not going to be taking any training at this point to say, "Hey, I want to be the baddest guy on the block." Um, so,
Yeah. It's
with that, what's a common piece of advice you find yourself giving to students um, when they come in? Because I'm sure everybody's coming in with their own idea. What's the most common piece of advice you find yourself giving to these individuals?
avoid the issue altogether. Avoid avoid conflict. Don't hang out where fights are gonna happen. Don't hang out with people who are getting drunk all the time, doing drugs, bars. Stay away from people who are excessively angry and have spiritual issues where they
Yeah.
can't control themselves. That'd be the first thing that I tell, especially young people. But after that, you think, okay, well, I can't get out of this situation. I was in the restaurant and there's some nutter who's been yelling at the top of his lungs because his bill was higher than it should be or whatever. And he starts throwing plates and he starts walking toward you, and there's no back door and you can't get out. What do you do? Well, then we start talking about, well, you have, a salt shaker there, you throw salt in his face. You have a fork in your hand, you stab him. You know, you but this is all defense. This is him coming and grabbing you or trying to swing at you. There are people who you know, and some will even act like it's traditional, but it's not traditional in terms of what the old masters taught. Where they'll say, well, the best thing to do is just hit somebody before they can hit you. That's a good way to, go to prison,
Right.
and it's a good way to maybe, hurt or damage or kill someone who was not intent on being physical with you. You might have thought they were gonna be doing that. Psychologically, your fear response might have elevated you so much that you thought they were gonna do it, but they didn't have that intent. And if it went to court, and by the way, the jails and prisons are full of these people. If it goes to court and the judge puts it to the person, says, "Well, I was yelling in his face, judge, but I wasn't going to do anything to him, and he hit me in the jaw, and I fell back and hit my head on a fire hydrant, and then I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and blah 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 blah, and then you get put away for it, you know." So,
So so it
so
comes with a
there's
monicum of responsibility. This learning this training and knowing this training comes with a monicum of responsibility. It almost also sounds like that you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, but it also sounds like that you're saying that defense doesn't start with just you being in the position with that person. It also comes from the situational awareness where you talked about earlier. Don't be in dark alleys. Don't be in. You can't be in bar fights unless if
absolutely,
you're not in a bar. Um,
absolutely,
it,
yeah,
it, 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 it it sounds like it comes from also being cognizant of your surroundings, where you're putting yourself places that you're in. So
absolutely, man.
what?
Yeah, yeah, and it extends even further to, your partners and who you're around most of your days. Your relationships, your marriage, whatever. It's like, do I want to be around a person who's constantly negative with me, or somebody who's bringing me down and making me want to be a lesser version of my best self? And
Yeah.
so it extends even to that. So it's not something as apparently obvious as, well, yeah, don't go out, 1 o'clock, bars and slosh around, and because we know bad things are going to happen, nothing good comes of that. And so
Right.
avoidance or prevention, the old master said, don't get in the fight, nobody wins. Now
You
back
know,
back in those
I've
days,
heard that. I've
higher.
heard that from a lot of martial arts individuals that that's a huge thing of, okay, you're trained up. Now what's your first thing? Not fight. Try to seek not to fight.
Yeah, and a lot of people who run a little bit more on the, aggressive side, or I've got to prove myself constantly side, they'll say, "Yeah, well, that's just, them, they're weak and they don't wanna fight." It's like, "No, we train because we wanna train till we're 110 years old. We train for health. We don't train to, go and get in backyard brawls trying to prove something that nobody cares about anyway."
yeah,
We care less about any of that stuff. We're interested in longevity, and we're interested in health, and we're interested in more strength, and we're interested in being able to defend ourselves and our families, and we're interested in being able to provide for our families and help them as long as we can. We're interested in being contributors, not detractors. That's the whole point, and that's what the martial arts
Yeah.
were initially. Despite what somebody might see in a fictionalized movie or something. Okay?
So it sounds like it's defense, but it's not just physical defense. You're defending your health. You're defending your mental state. Part of this training is prepping and getting yourself to that place of, am I physically healthy? Am I mentally healthy? Is my stress levels down? So this sounds like this is something great for everybody, and I want all of our podcasters to say, hey, you know, I need to get down there and I need to find out this class on the 13th is a women's class, but I still want them to be able to reach out and find out and say, "Hey, Chip, what's going
Yeah.
on?" So,
Yeah, listen, yeah, people can reach me, through my email, chipsebastian@hotmail.com. Sebastian is Sebastian, right there on the screen. They can call me straight up. I don't care. I'll talk to you on the phone. 859-421-1469. If ladies wanna come to the, Saturday, event, they can go to the Emmanuel Baptist website and register for it. It's $20, 3 hours. You're not gonna get that much anywhere else, all right? And
wow.
it's solid training, I mean, straight through. We always have a lot of fun, because it's ladies and, you gotta make it fun, so I take pads and women knock the fire out of those pads and they learn good stuff, you know?
So,
And,
so at this defense class, they'll get an actual chance to do some hands-on stuff.
oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah,
so
it isn't talking, it's here's how to punch, here's how to kick,
beautiful,
here's how to dodge,
beautiful.
here's how to, kick somebody where it really hurts, here's how to, it's all that stuff. It's not, "Let me give you the theory of martial arts from 1885." You know?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
So,
that
well, listen, I know, I know that your time is tight, and I know you've got some places to be and things like that. I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And
Actually,
oh, oh,
Tony,
yep.
I did wanna say, if it's okay, anyone who's interested can also come to the, UK Kempo Club. Like I said, we meet on Mondays and Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8:30. That is a donation-based club. So, don't let money be an object or a thing or whatever. If you want to train and you want to get good training, that you can do for a lifetime, feel free to come down and just jump in class. If you need to call me and talk to me about it beforehand, that's fine, or just show up. But Alumni Gym, UK campus, Monday, Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8:30, and people can also go to the website Kyojuteru Kempo com, and that's our main website, and they can read all about it. My teacher, Bill Durbin, has been in Frankfurt teaching. He's 70. He just turned 70. He's been teaching there since the 70s, and he teaches 8+ classes a week, and he works out with everybody. So to me, he's the finest example of what that can do for you over many years' time and lifetime training.
Wow,
So,
wow.
if you're closer to Frankfurt, if you have some Louisvillians listening, and we also have the Louisville club at U of L too, Kyojuteru club at U of L, so you can check into that. Jeremy Briley is the contact there. You can find it
So,
very easily online.
so
So,
really, there's no reason to not be able to get this training. There's
nah,
really no reason. You've got it everywhere.
no, if you're interested in doing it, and listen, it's a good environment. Going back to what we were talking about before, it's not an aggressive pitting people against each other stuff. You come in, it's a family style environment. We go through a warm up. We've got stretching and push ups and all this other stuff, and then you get to it and you learn whatever you're doing for the night. It might be jujitsu, throwing, choking. It might be weapons. It might be here's how to
Okay.
do gun defense, knife defense. So, come and try out a class, and then if you don't like it, then just don't come back. But, but you don't wanna write it off because you think it's gonna be an aggressive, cage fight or something, because that's all you see. Anytime people think martial arts, they think it's cage fighting. Most people who are serious martial arts, they're not cage fighting. Please understand that. Because martial arts, remember, means that it has the philosophy of we don't want to fight. We are avoiding fighting. If I step into a cage and fight somebody, then I am not really a martial artist in the traditional sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, and I like that. I think that's a good spot and a good point for us to wrap. Again,
Excellent.
Chip, thank you for taking the time and coming out. You know, I think we're gonna have to get together and do this again. I see it already.
I'd
There's
love to.
too much here. I think that we didn't cover. But again, I want to thank you for taking the time and coming
Unpack.
out.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I appreciate you having me on, man, and I really appreciate. It was a great time, man. So thank you very much for having me and taking the time.
Not a problem, not a problem at all. Hey, listen, if you guys, you know, you heard it here first, right? Well, you didn't hear it here first, but you heard it here. We're all about health. This is a form of health that it kind of seems like it ties the whole total health thing in. You've got your physical component, you've got your mental, you've got your relief of stress. If you did not find and get the information as far as where these classes are or where you can take these classes or how you can get back to them, don't worry. Rewind the video. If you know somebody who may benefit from this, reach out, share the video with them. Let them know you've seen Chip. You've just watch me talk to him, so you know he's a good guy. He's family oriented, family focused, and the training seems to be more realistic than what you see in the movies. And so it's not going to be that Hollywood stuff. All right. Remember, your total health, and you've got total health things going on. You want to be on the podcast? Definitely reach out because, like I always tell you, I ain't hard to find.
I'm gonna keep it real with you. Hugh Vine Wellness and Spa. I don't get into the spa a lot. I'm just a man's man, and that ain't what I do. Not saying that there's nothing wrong with men who do go there, because listen, beautification is a beautiful thing. It's all part of health and it's all part of wellness. But I will tell you this: this soap here, this black soap. Listen, it's that charcoal soap, is what it is. Bing, you got it. I want to make sure you got it all in there. Phenomenal. When I tell you, when I tell you, using this soap, I actually felt so much better. My skin felt so good. Their slogan is skin that you'll want to show off. And believe me, it is skin that you want to show off. Definitely make sure you get a chance to check it out. Hugh Vine Wellness and Spa. You can Google them, you can Facebook them, you can YouTube them, you can Instagram them. You can send smoke signals if you need to send smoke signals. I'm sure they will be able to take care of you.